Hey guys, just a quick disclaimer before we begin. This episode contains content that some listeners may find disturbing, so maybe don't listen with children around. Okay, now that's out of the way, on with the show. Hello Internet, and welcome to Ramblings of a Madman. I'm Alex, and I'm joined by Sean and Stuart for a shallow and probably uninformed dive into unexplained mysteries, conspiracy theories, and the supernatural. How are we all doing on this pleasant autumn evening?
It's cold.
It's gonna rain.
It's raining sideways. No, it's alright. We're all good. Just get the shill over and done with. Come on.
Do it.
Do it. Should I commence with the shilling?
Commence with the shilling. Get out of the way.
Shilling commence.
Okay, so why don't everyone listening right now go over to Apple Podcasts and give us a rating or review? It'll really help us out and it'll spread the word. All the links for the show are available on our website, ramblingsofamadman.podbean.com, or on Twitter at RomePodcast. How's that? Is that good enough?
Shilling done?
Shilling done?
Are you done?
Are you done?
Disgusting human being. Are you proud of yourself?
I am, I'm very proud.
Bringing down our good name.
Right, I will hand the floor to you, Sean, because it's a fabled Sean episode that everyone's been wanting for a while.
Hell yeah, everyone's been asking for it. It's everyone's favourite episode. No, I can't keep it.
Oh, you couldn't even convince yourself.
I couldn't even convince myself. Right. Does everyone like people going missing?
I mean,
not personally.
Stories,
not really.
Stories of.
Yes.
Okay. Did everyone like the Diallo Pass episode?
Yes.
I loved it. It was good.
Well, we're not doing that. No.
We're not
That
doing
was
the
actually
Apple
one of
Pass
my
again.
favourite episodes. But why don't you join me now for a deep dive into the mystery of the Yuba County Five?
Ooh.
Did you prepare that rhyme beforehand?
All fucking month. I've been working on that. I've spent more time on that one sentence than I have actually working on my best man speech for Stuart's wedding.
I mean, that is fairly standard. That's exactly what I was expecting from you.
That's a joke. I have been working on. Okay.
I mean, you've probably done more of a speech than I did for my own, so...
Right.
It's fine, the world's giving you extra time.
Yeah.
We're good.
Get out of jail free card.
Yep.
Exactly. But I would have been prepared, I'm a last minute kind of guy.
We all believe in you.
Right. Yuba County 5. Also known as The Boys locally by family and friends.
The boys!
The boys!
No, I'm
it's
not
like
joking.
the Boy Master! The
Oh
Boy
my
Master
God.
strikes again. Sorry, please carry on.
Right. Yuba County 5, also known as The Boys, their family and friends. On Friday, the 24th of February, 1978, they all attended a basketball game. And that was the last time they were all seen alive.
Dun dun dun.
Ooh. Wait,
Dun, dun, dun.
together or individually?
Any of them.
Mad, okay.
That's the last time all 5 of them were seen alive.
I'm intrigued already. I like
Where did
where
they
this
go
is
to play
going.
basketball?
Well, they were all... We'll get to that. That was the intro. Stop ruining the intro. So now I'll introduce the 5 lads, okay?
Yeah.
So there was Bill Sterling, Jackie Hewitt, so nickname Jackie,
These names.
Ted Wire,
Oh,
Jack Madruga,
that's a great name.
and Gary
Madruga.
Matthias.
That's a pretty good name.
Yeah, so Ted Wire, I think his full name was William Ted Wire. So he would have been known as Bill Ted Wire.
He was both Bill and Ted.
Yes. I did actually make that pun in my head when I was writing this, but I didn't think it was worth it. So
Well, we'll see if it makes the cut at the end.
we'll see if it makes the cut. So it might get a bit confusing to make the clarification. There is Jackie, who is a guy, and Jack. So there are 2 different Jacks.
Yep.
Okay.
Don't worry, I've already forgotten all the names.
That's fine. That's fine.
Something Madruga. That's the only thing I remembered from it, and that's because I said it.
You'll notice in episodes that I do, I tend to leave out the names because I forget myself as I'm making it.
Yeah.
I just say, there was a guy, and then there was another guy.
This kind of matters because the individual lads do have things that matter within their background and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, all of the men, they are between the ages of 24 and 32, for clarification. So all the men live in Yuba County, which is in California, and all of them, except Matthias, so Gary Matthias, had mild learning difficulties.
Oh, great.
They led very scheduled lives, never unpredictable, lived at home with their families, did not live independently, but functioned at a high level in regards to their learning difficulties. Okay. So one of the ways they knew each other was that they all attended a day program for adults with learning difficulties. This was called Gateway, and it had its own basketball team called the Gateway Gators.
What excellent choice.
Gateway Gators. It was a great choice of name.
Can I just say that Gateway sounds very culty?
No comment. I don't know. Look, it's just a day.
Is that one of the theories? Is it a sinister cult?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But no.
Yeah, yes.
But no, the Gateway is not a cult, as far as I know. It was actually, from what I've been reading, quite a highly reputable day program within California.
Okay.
And obviously they had their own basketball team, Gateway Gators. They actually had a game sponsored. So they went missing on the 24th. That's the last time they were seen. But on the 25th, on the Saturday, the next day, they actually had a game playing for the Gateway Gators, sponsored by the Special Olympics. So it's actually like...
So it's high profile, yeah.
High profile, yeah.
I definitely thought you were going to say it was sponsored by Gatorade, just to complete the cycle.
The Gateway Gators, sponsored by Gatorade. Well, it could have been, but I don't think Gatorade was a thing in 1978. Stu.
Should we find out? Should we do the first fact check?
Should we
of
do
the
the first
podcast?
fact check?
Fact check ever in this podcast. You do that while I carry on. So all the lads were playing in
1983.
1983, yeah. 5 years late. Or too early. Fuck.
Just say there was time travel involved. There we go.
Right. All the lads were playing in this game. Right. And if they won, they would get a free week-long trip to LA, paid for by the Special Olympics committee, whatever. And they were all super excited to play that game. Right. Go into a bit of detail on the 5 lads. Okay. So Bill Sterling, he was 29. He had a dishwasher job, which his mother convinced him to leave as he was getting bullied due to his low IQ. So he's getting bullied at work, people taking advantage of him, and also people used to get him drunk when he would go out and steal his money and take advantage. It was horrible.
Uh-huh.
So you can see...
They were still vulnerable.
Yeah, they were definitely vulnerable, apart from Gary Matthias, but we'll get to him. Right, Jackie Hewitt, 24, the youngest of the lads. He was, out of all of them, he had some of the more severe learning difficulties. He spent a lot of his childhood in a secure psychiatric hospital. Couldn't read or write, and he relied a lot on his mother and on Ted, who he was closest with out of the group.
Okay.
So Ted Wire, or William Ted Wire, I believe is his full name, 32, is the oldest out of the group. He was a former janitor. Jack Madruga, 30 years old. He graduated college. He spent 2 years in the army. He also had low IQ, and he was the only one who had a driver's license.
Okay.
Completely relevant and integral to the story, he owned a turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego, which is a very, very nice, in my opinion, classic car.
Okay.
From looks, I don't know how it drives. It could be absolute wank, but hey. He considered this car to be his pride and joy. Absolutely love this car. So Gary Matthias, 25, did not have any learning difficulties, but was medically discharged from the army due to schizophrenia.
So 2 of them served in the army?
Jack Madruga, Gary Matthias, spent time in the army. I don't know how long Gary Matthias spent in the army.
Yeah.
But Jack Madruga spent 2 years in the army.
Okay.
But Gary Matthias was medically discharged from the army due to schizophrenia. He worked for his stepdad's gardening business. No intellectual difficulties. He was actually quite intelligent. but he was on meds for his psychiatric issues.
Mm-hmm.
People were actually unsure why he was in Gateway, the day program, as he was not mentally impaired in any way, but he got on well with the group.
Yeah.
And, they were all good mates. No one questioned it. Okay, so that's like a little brief bit of knowledge of the guys. So on Friday, as I said, Friday, 24th of February, 1978, the guys all traveled to a basketball game at California State University in Chico, which is about an hour away, 50-mile drive from Yuba.
And did they all go in Jack's car?
Yes. They went to watch UC Davis play, which was their favourite team. Bill left home with $15 and multiple maps of the California area, which will matter later.
Okay.
Right.
Their team won.
Hey.
Yay!
Excellent.
And then they went missing. They were expected to be home around midnight, but never arrived. Obviously, they've got the game next day. You'd expect them, to be quite excited. One of them did say that he wanted to have a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
I believe that was actually Gary. So not being home by midnight, obviously set off alarm bells, yeah.
Mm.
So the next day, Saturday, 25th of February, 1978, the police are called at 8 p.m. in the evening to report missing people. So the families waited the majority of the day waiting for them to come back at 8 p.m. They finally decided to ring. A public alert was sent out to the public for help, but they didn't conduct a search straight away. This being that all 5 of the lads were adults. They could have just gone somewhere without letting anyone know.
Yeah, and it's not like it's like a desolate area, is it?
No. Well, no. It was a fairly built-up area.
It's not the Yatlov Pass. It's not the side of a mountain in the middle of nowhere.
No, but we'll get to that. There are bits that in between the places they've gone to, but basically the parents pushed for it because they were like, look, these lads don't like being out. A lot of the lads individually did not actually like the big outdoors. They weren't hikers. They weren't anything like that. They were going out of their normal routine to go to this basketball match, right? So for them to not come back and break routine, extremely abnormal for a lot of the lads. So it was confirmed that they did go to the game.
Okay.
And the last sighting of them was by a convenience store worker in Chico after the game, just before 10 p.m. on the Friday. 10 p.m. was closing time, and the clerk was a bit pissed about them turning up right before closing, right? So that's why it was quite prominent for them.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, is that what made it memorable for the
store clerk? Yeah,
for the store clerk. Yeah.
They bought a bunch of snacks and junk food and left.
Do you know what time the game ended?
I am not sure what time the game ended.
Do you know what time it started?
I am not sure what time the game started.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's like a big gap between the game ending and then.
So the drive was about an hour away.
Yeah.
So if the game finished about 9:30, they would have been home for 10:30.
Yeah,
but they didn't. They were expected to turn up around midnight.
Yeah, but it's not like the game ended at 4 p.m. and then they were missing for 6 hours and then turned up at.
They might have. It could have been the case where it finished halfway through the day, and
I think part of me thinks though that given the fact that they were people that weren't particularly keen on being away and were expected back at midnight, you'd expect that they'd probably have a leaving plan for 11.
Yeah, maybe.
Wouldn't you? If it's an hour journey, expected back at 12, you therefore think the departure time would be 11 o'clock. So the game maybe finishing at 10 o'clock allows them to get out of the stadium, things like that, get back to the car, get on the road.
Yeah,
get ready to go.
I'm not sure exactly how, anxious they would have been given their individual learning difficulties, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of sticking to the rules or making sure they had a set schedule. But I'm presuming, 5 lads looking after each other. They might have gone for a meal somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
But they
mentioned before. You mentioned before that they were people that were prone to stick into a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They're well routined, drilled people that helps with their coping kind of things.
Yeah.
So how do you know that they were at the game?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it was confirmed that their tickets passed.
Okay.
But basically, the police were able to confirm 100% that they were at the game.
Okay.
And then the last sighting of them that was confirmed, the descriptions and everything that the store clerk gave them was spot on. So, another woman, after the missing report came out, said that she saw the men on Saturday or Sunday.
Okay.
She couldn't remember. She
That's
reported
useful.
that they were in a red pickup, and 2 of them bought food. 1 used a phone booth, and the other 2 stayed in the truck.
Was this another convenience store worker?
This is, just a different store. This was either the next day, so the Saturday or the Sunday. She couldn't remember.
Yep, but in a different car altogether.
There's various different things that have been disputed off this because, for one, it was way off route. Police thinking it's probably mistaken identity because it's so far off track and they had no reason to be there, right?
But also just if this guy was really proud of his car, where would he have left his car?
Well, yeah, they're in a wrong... Exactly,
They're
they're in a red
vehicle,
pickup.
aren't they? And did they seem in distress when they saw them? Like they'd been mugged and maybe he'd lost his car and they were hitchhiking?
Yeah, there was no report of them being in distress or anything like that. She just said that she saw them in a red pickup and 2 of them bought food. 1 used a phone booth, the other 2 stayed in the truck. The person that she described going to the phone booth wouldn't have been any of the lads. I think she specifically... So I'll get to why. She specifically described one of the lads. That lad that she suggested it was, the family was like, no, he wouldn't have gone on the phone. He was literally terrified of using the phone. He always used to get his brother to make phone calls for him. He wouldn't have used the phone. So there's a lot of conflicting evidence to say that woman who saw them in the red truck was actually not necessarily telling the truth. She might have genuinely seen 5 lads in a pickup truck.
Yeah, she's possibly mistaken.
Yeah, possibly mistaken. Okay, so we now go to Plumas National Forest. So that is a screenshot that I did to show the basic location. So at the bottom, you can see Yuba County. The top left one, about an hour drive away, is Chico. And way northeast is Plumas National Forest.
Yeah, it's quite a ways, isn't it?
It's quite a way, and it's definitely the wrong way.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yeah, it's not even like you've gone on the same road but in the wrong direction. It's literally...
It's literally like it forks off and they've gone north instead of south.
Yeah.
So, slightly different part of the story. I'm going to give you another eyewitness. Plumas National Forest, 2.5 hours from Yuba. Joseph Shons was driving up a gravel road on the Friday night towards his cabin in the mountains to check some gear before a later ski trip with his family. His car gets stuck in the snow about 5:30 in the afternoon. He then starts trying to dig the car out, pushing the car out, all that classic stuff.
Yep.
There's snow everywhere. I want to point out this is a very snowy area. It's February, so I'm guessing it's quite cold in the area. There's snow everywhere.
Yeah, it's high up, I imagine.
While he's trying to push the car out, he recognises that he's starting to get symptoms of a heart attack.
Okay.
So this was actually confirmed later by a doctor. So he did actually have a mild heart attack around about this time. So trying not to panic, gets back in the car, sits in the car with the engine and the heat on, and stays there, just with the engine running low.
Mm-hmm.
He stays there for a couple of hours. Around about 11 p.m, he hears whistling. Gets out the car and looks down the mountain, and about 150 foot away, he sees headlights, and he sees a group of men and a woman with a baby in the headlights. He tries to get their attention, calling for help, but he's obviously struggling a bit because he's having a heart attack. He's short of breath. But then the lights go out and all the noise stops. Later, he sees flashlight beams, calls for help again, lights go out again, gets back in the car. And obviously he's really struggling, having this heart attack. I didn't realise they could actually go on for a long period of time like this. Can you confirm, Stu?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's really struggling, trying to keep himself staying warm. Car runs out of fuel, because I'm not American.
And these people are just walking?
No, they're in the headlights of the car, just standing there.
Oh, then they're not in a car?
No, they're in the headlights of his car, so they're lit up, illuminated by his headlights, is what you're saying, isn't it?
No, I think the way I read it was that the group of people were illuminated by the headlights of their car.
Oh, of their own car.
Yes.
Wait, but why aren't they in the car?
So it seems like they've broken down as well.
Well, why aren't they in the car? Because as soon as he calls out, the lights go out and all the noise stops. Later on, he sees flashlight beams approaching the car, I believe. He calls for help, and then the lights go out again, and then silence again. Then his car runs out of fuel, so he decides to leave the car in, a last-ditch attempt at survival. So he decides to go down the mountain for help. 8 miles he walks in the freezing cold.
Blimey.
With the heart attack. And then he actually finds a lodge where he gets help. So that he ended up completely fine. But on the way, he finds an empty car sat in the snow. And this was he walked in the direction that he heard the whistling and where the car was, etc., etc. And what car did he see?
The blue one.
No, you're right. It was the Jack Madruga's turquoise and blue Mercury Montego.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, at this time, he didn't know that, but the car was quite memorable. It was one of the only things that he'd seen.
And it's the same car, so it's the identified by the number plate, is it? It's not just the same model.
We'll get to it later. It's confirmed as his car. The police eventually searched that car and they confirmed it to be Jack Madruga's.
What? Look how far away they are, though.
Yeah, the timelines don't quite add up. Because if they were seen at 10 and then they were here at 11...
Okay.
And you said it was like 2.5 hours away.
Well, this is the thing. So around about 11, an hour after the last time they were seen, he sees a group of men and a woman with a baby.
Yeah, but the timeline I'm thinking in my head is that he's seen these... The guys have picked up a woman from somewhere with a baby, and they've driven the car, and they've broken down a ways from him, and he's seen them, and then they've panicked, turned the lights off of the car, and then ditched the car and ran away. Right?
Yeah, and then maybe have tried to return to the car, which is why they had the flashlights.
Yeah.
So how far into his 8-mile journey did he find the car?
I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't specify that. He was just basically the 8-mile journey when he started walking along that way in the direction where he heard the whistling. And, obviously that's the last time he's heard anyone. He doesn't know where he is. And he just walks and he finds a lodge who help him.
Yeah.
And he gets the medical attention that he needs. And then that's basically the end of his story. But he does find the Mercury Montego.
The impression that I'm getting here is that these guys have gone to leave their basketball game. They've probably stumbled across somebody, maybe like the kind of classic damsel in distress with a baby, and then they've tried to do a good deed to help this person. They've then driven away from their home with the intent of doing a good deed, and have run out of fuel themselves, but in the middle of blooming nowhere.
And then tried what this guy did, and tried to just walk and find somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Other speculation. Was he hallucinating from the heart attack?
I mean, possibly.
So
he could have been really cold.
He saw a woman. Was that just a man with long hair?
Yeah, but there were 6 of them. You said the 5 lads and a woman with a baby, right?
So, no, I'm not sure. I do apologise.
I suppose one of them could have still been in the car as well. That might account for the numbers.
So, did any of them have long hair? Do you know?
Remembering from pictures, I think one of them might have. Yeah, Ted Wire, technically. I'll send you the link now.
And was it definitely a baby?
Well, good question. So was it definitely a baby? What if it was just like a package?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. Is it something else that's in somebody's hand?
A basketball.
What if it was a basketball?
The game-winning throw.
So, Theodore Wire. I don't know where the hell I got William from. Bill Sterling is William.
Yeah.
Okay, that's completely wrong. Bill Sterling is William, and Theodore Weir was Ted Weir. Okay, but you can see Ted has got like the scrunched hair, sort of mullet look.
Yeah.
At least in that photo when it was taken.
I mean, Jack's hair's pretty long as well.
Yeah, but that's more of like it looks long as like a fringe, but it's speculation, isn't it? Like, did he see a woman? with long hair? Did he see a man with long hair? Did he confuse it for a woman in like the panic? Because as soon as he called out for help, the lights went out.
Yeah.
Which does suggest that there might have been someone still in the car.
Mm-hmm.
To be clear as well, after that, he got back in the car. Then while he was in the car later, he saw flashlights.
Yeah, it still reads to me that they've ditched the car with flashlights, and they're kind of jumpy. I mean, these people with learning difficulties, so being shouted at in the darkness from an unknown
Might have scared
direction.
them.
Yeah.
Maybe. Interesting theory. Was it definitely the boys? Was it definitely the Yuba County 5?
I mean, it seems like, from everything you told us, a group of individuals.
There's
in
no
the
confirmation that he saw them.
Yeah, and if he didn't see 5 people, it could have just been that he saw 2 people that had broken down. But then the thing we're overlooking or looking past is the fact that his car was there. Jack's car was there, wasn't it?
Yeah. In the direction of where he saw or heard the whistling coming from and saw all that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to carry on because you're giving some interesting theories, but I'm going to completely throw a spanner in the works in the next few minutes.
Okay.
All 5 of their bodies were found underneath the basketball court.
Like Jimmy Hoffa.
Have you just Googled it? Like, what the fuck? No, I'm joking. That did not happen. So, also on the 25th, so on the Saturday, the day after they go missing, a forest ranger also reports seeing the Montego in the middle of an unused road that runs up into the mountains, confirming Joseph's story, right? So this is before the police have got to it, investigated it, blah, blah, blah. At the time, he considered this not that significant, but he did report it on the 28th. So 3 days after after the search went out, on the 28th when he saw the missing posters. So he reports it. The car was found 4,400 foot or 1,300 meters in elevation along the road, about where the snow line was at that time of year, just short of where the road was closed for the winter. There was around 6 to 8 foot of snow.
So it implies that walking anywhere would be a struggle.
So investigators, the police, they check the car. This is the, no pun intended, spanner in the works. The car was unlocked. The keys were missing. There were wrappers and shit everywhere, confirming that they'd bought all this food.
Yep.
It was stuck in the snow, but it could have been pushed out. It wasn't like there was evidence that the tyres had span a little bit, but they could have easily pushed it out between the 5 of them safely.
Yeah. So it seems that they didn't try.
Yeah. So they didn't try. There was still a quarter tank of fuel left, so running out of fuel wasn't the issue.
Uh-huh.
The police hotwire the car to see if it was broken to get it running, and it works instantly. Not a hiccup. The ignition just goes straight away. Perfect. No mechanical issues whatsoever. So the investigators then found the maps that Bill took, so they couldn't have gotten lost. There's an argument to that saying
they didn't take
had
the maps
4
with them.
maps. They did.
They left them in the car, didn't they?
Yeah, but they were in the car with the maps. They could have used the maps to not get lost where they were.
You said before that the maps were of California, right? To be able to get...
Yeah, they are in the state of California. All of this happens within the state of California.
So
and
the maps aren't of just the Yuba County area and the Chico area. They're for the whole state.
It's for the whole state, yeah.
So they would have known the path that they were taking then?
Yeah.
I mean, just because you've got a map doesn't mean you can use it very well.
Yeah, but there are, like, road signs. You'd see road signs that would tell you that you're on a certain road, and between one of them, you would look at the map and just check that you're on the right road, surely.
Yeah. Especially if 2 of the lads have been in the army, they must have learned how to orienteer a bit.
Mm.
The point being, though, these maps were all neatly folded up in the glove compartment, suggesting that they hadn't been used. So that rules out the idea of getting lost, maybe, because they didn't even try to use the maps. And Bill specifically took maps with him. It wasn't like he just had them in the car, because it wasn't his car as well. Bill took the maps to the car for the journey. So why didn't they use them? Did they go intentionally?
I mean, they could have used them and then just put them put them back in the glove box.
So I'm not disputing that, maybe. The point being, why would they neatly fold up the maps, put them back in the glove box, then leave the car?
Because it's dark when they left the car, so there's no point taking the maps because they can't read them anyway. And they're probably panicking at this point because they...
Well, the car would have had lights and headlights, which were all working completely fine.
Yeah, but if they're walking away from the car, the headlights only go so far.
So why are they walking away from the car?
Because they think the car is either broken or stuck or whatever. And they're trying to find help.
Okay, so the car worked completely fine. They had a quarter tank of fuel.
Yeah, but it might have gotten stuck in the snow, and then the snow might have melted a bit before they found it.
If anything, it got worse from what I read. Because later on it says that a lot of the snow actually covered up any chances of finding tracks in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying you're wrong. There's definitely a possibility that they thought the car was screwed for whatever reason. But also you had two lads who've been in the army. I'm making presumptions, but that's what the podcast is for. Maybe they would have known how to get a car moving. You know what I mean? If they're driving trucks around or something. That's my thought process. Like, there's no... They all, apart from obviously Gary, did have learning difficulties in some way. They had low IQ. They were known to have low IQ. But why were they there in the first place? With no sign of trying to use a map? And why did they leave the car? To be clear as well, Jack Madruga's family explicitly said he loved that car. He would not have left that car.
Right.
And he definitely wouldn't have intentionally driven the car on rough roads. These roads were, like, rough with a capital R. They were horrible to drive on, right?
Mm-hmm.
The investigators' cars had damage because the roads were that bad.
Right.
But there was no damage on the undercarriage of the car.
Okay, that kind of... I was just about to say, that leaves me thinking two things before you said that.
Aliens.
So yes, aliens, yeah. No, the first thing was that could they have been running away from somebody and then taken that track? But then the park ranger's story doesn't really support that. And then the second theory was, okay, well, could they be completely lost, having just taken a completely innocuous wrong turn, and then maybe tried to dodge an animal and got stuck off the side of the road? Like, maybe like there was a deer or a bear or something that might make
damage was
but they didn't hit
found
it
on the
but
car.
then they got themselves stuck in the snow,
but there was no damage to the underside of the car as well. So I'm not saying that's wrong, actually. It's a good point, but also if you get the car stuck in some way, there's a possibility that the underside of the car will get damaged.
Yeah,
there was no damage to the underside of the car. Basically, the point being, whoever drove up the road must have known how to navigate the road. It's the determination that both the investigators and the park rangers and all that determined.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that Jack drove the car up there.
He would never let anyone else drive the car. He never did let anyone else drive the car.
Exactly, though. So he didn't let them, but somebody else drove the car.
Maybe.
We're making the assumption that all these guys were in the car when it stopped, and not the car was moved or
True.
taken away from where the boys were. Because in my head, I'm now thinking maybe they stopped somewhere else. Maybe they did stop for some unknown reason, and the car could have been taken and driven up a derelict road that no one would follow them up, or no one would ever go up, but somebody knows the roads and know it's a hideout, and then leaves the car there to come back for it.
Mm-hmm. Another bit of information, Jack, he did not know that area, and his personality and his learning disabilities and his family, they were all like, no, he would not have gone that way. He hated the cold and the great outdoors. There's a possibility he could have taken the wrong turn, obviously, but it's a pretty big wrong turn to make.
Yep.
Basically, to round that off, one, why would they leave the car? Even if they got lost, let's presume they got lost for a second. Why would they leave the car? There was literally no emergency or logical reason to leave the car.
Well, not regarding the car.
Go on.
Well, we don't know if one of the people had an emergency. I mean, I don't mean to generalise at all, but you've got a schizophrenic who maybe is having trouble. You've got people with severe learning difficulties, maybe, who are having more behavioural trouble because they're lost and then maybe they're panicking. It might well be that they started arguing amongst themselves, or like just any form of disagreement, or like just started fighting a bit of infighting while they're in the car, has pulled over because they've been fighting, and it's got more heated from there, and then people have got out of the car. I can imagine 5 people crammed in a car. Like, even nowadays, 5 people
It looks
in a car.
like quite a spacious car. Like a lot of older cars, especially American cars, are quite large. You're thinking like your Buicks and stuff like that. They are quite large cars.
Yeah, I don't
But
think you can
still,
apply rational thought to these people, though, based on how you've described them.
Understandable, and that's the difficult part of this.
Yeah.
But also intellectually, between them, like Gary Matthias had no learning difficulties. He was proven to be schizophrenic, or diagnosed rather to be schizophrenic, but logically, intellectually, he was sound.
Oh.
Jack Madruga himself was in the army, was not medically discharged, but he was in the army for 2 years.
He was a graduate, right, you said? He was a college graduate?
He also had graduated college.
Yeah. Even if his IQ is considered low, it might still be on the higher end of low.
Mm-hmm.
So he might still be able to, or like not limited in his thought process as much as we might be thinking.
Mm-hmm.
What's next then?
So, the search that was carried out, men on foot, helicopters, dogs, the works. Right? 9 days into the search, snow was happening all the time. But a big old snowstorm happened, which definitely would have removed any potential evidence of tracks, etc. So on day 10, the search is called off.
Right. So they didn't find anything at all?
Yeah, they didn't find anything at all. Also, they were assuming that no one could have survived in that snow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were also not dressed for the cold when they left. And this to me is the most chilling, no pun intended.
Hey.
So Ted's grandma insisted he take a coat when he left on the Friday for the game, right? And in response he says, "Oh, grandma, I don't need a coat. Not tonight."
He killed them. The coat would inhibit his movements. Yeah, he had to be speedy to get 4 kills.
Quad.
Right, we'll carry on. So I've just given you guys a picture to peruse.
Yep, I see it.
One of the other things that people considered is that Gary Matthias had friends in Forbestown. And you can see on the map where that is. And this was halfway between Chico and Yuba City, give or take. The road to Forbestown is easy to miss. And if you miss it, you will head towards Plumas.
Right.
Wait, really?
Well, what I've sent you is literally what I went on to Google Maps, put in all 4 locations to kind of show you where it is. And from Chico to Forbestown, that looks like this, like as the crow flies.
So if you turn too early, you'll end up going up to Plumas, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what is suggested in all the things I've seen.
Yeah, okay.
So, did they plan to meet Gary's friends and Mr. Turn?
It's possible.
It's possible. However, the friends of Gary said they have not heard from him in a year, and they were definitely not expecting them.
Okay, so that rules that out completely.
So that rules that out. 3 weeks after the lads were missing, a Yuba County woman, which she was totally not, completely not related to the lads in any way. She gets several phone calls from a man 3 days in a row. An anonymous call.
Uh-huh.
She answers the phone, and the voice says, "I know where the missing 5 men are." And before she has a chance to reply, he puts the phone down.
What? What is this guy's plan?
The next day, phone call again, the woman picks up. "I need help because I really hurt those guys bad." She asks, "Who did you hurt?" And he says, "Don't play dumb with me," and puts the phone down.
Okay. Phone call number 3, please.
The third day, the last day, she answers the phone again. Those 5 guys are all dead. Hangs up.
Why is he phoning this random person?
And wait, so where has he got the number from to ring this woman? Has he just dialed an area code and then a random number then, I presume?
Is he just venting to get it off his chest?
Maybe. She's in Yuba County, where the lads went missing.
Yeah, but she's not anyone in a position of power who could do anything about it, right?
No, she reported to the police, but I mean, what can you do with that information? There's no way to track caller ID at 1978. I'm trying to think of any sort of forensic side of things that...
Fingerprints. In the ears.
Fingerprints of the ears.
Yeah, there we go.
They checked her earwax and find out who called her. There you go, perfect.
He put his finger right in my ear.
Voice print in. They found the voice print in the earwax.
Oh, God.
Basically, that's just a horrible bit of... Because even if it's a hoax call, that gets you thinking a bit
it's commitment,
for me at least.
Over 3 days.
3 days. I don't know if they were exactly the same time, anything like that, but over the 3 days in a row, she gets a call from this guy.
Well,
same
creepy.
guy, same voice. Mm.
But to play devil's advocate, though, it's public knowledge that these guys are missing now, isn't it?
Yeah, 3 weeks after the search, yeah. Sorry, 3 weeks after they went missing, not necessarily after the search stopped.
So it could just be somebody doing it for their 5 minutes of fame.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next bit. The police consult with a water witcher.
A what?
A what?
A water witcher, like
Geralt.
Like Geralt, but...
Geralt, but a drowner.
She uses... Sorry, it doesn't specify he or she. I'll start that again. I don't want to presume that this crazy woman is a woman.
Presume the gender of this crazy
the gender of the water witcher.
Right.
The police consult a water witcher who believes that she can use the science of dowsing using a Y-shaped piece of wood to locate water, buried metals, or gemstones, etc.
Or 5 young men.
Or 5 young men. This guy... Oh, it does actually say this guy in my notes. Forgot about that. So this guy apparently can tune it to make it find human remains.
Oh, so it's not a woman?
No, it was a guy.
Okay.
Geralt?
No. Imagine that. He's got a Y-shaped piece of wood. Hang on, just let me tune this.
Yeah, you're
let me tune it for human remains.
Ding, 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 ding,
ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding. There you go, it's ready.
You play guitar, Sean, you know how this works.
The wood doesn't have tuning pegs.
How do you know?
Okay.
Are you a water witcher?
Look, this is a very serious bit of the thing, okay? Just let me get to it.
This isn't a very serious show you're on, you realise that?
Sean, welcome to the podcast.
I am not disputing the credibility of the show. Right, the water witcher uses his scientifically accurate dowsing machine. He leads them to an empty cabin not far from where the car is found. And they find a grey cigarette lighter.
Is that it? Is that unusual or is that significant?
You tell me.
Yeah, but is it like...
Did any of them
when
smoke?
You say a grey cigarette lighter, is it like a Zippo that's grey?
Well, I'm genuinely asking you to tell me what's significant because...
You put it in the show, so it should be...
I know, I'm joking. But, the point is, it's
so
not
did any of them smoke?
It's not... No, none of them were carrying a lighter. None of them smoked. None of them needed a lighter. They used pseudoscience, and they found nothing. It's my point.
Oh.
That's my point I'm trying to make. There was no need to... they used a water witcher, and it was oh my god, we found a cabin and a grey cigarette lighter. But none of them smoke. What? Oh, okay. Let's keep looking.
Wait, so there's nothing else at the cabin?
No, it's not related at all. They don't find any remains. They don't find any...
You really got my hopes up then.
Yeah, same. I was reading it oh my god, the dowsing worked. And it didn't.
I mean, did it? It found...
Maybe
it found a cabin that wasn't related.
He tuned it to
cigarette lighters, yeah.
Little did they know, they didn't check the walls, and there was dead bodies all in the walls and underneath the cabin. I'm joking.
They lifted the lighter up and just missed the 5 bodies that were underneath the lighter. Like,
Basically,
oh my God,
that didn't matter, but I find it funny that... So it's not funny in the aspect that they were desperate. They were trying to find these lads. They tried to use everything they could.
Yeah.
They even used a water witcher. This is how lost they were. Many months later, the snow clears.
Ooh.
They get a phone call from a motorcyclist who was out for a ride 20 miles from where the car was found. He found a Forest Service cabin with a broken window. So the police obviously investigate it. They go and have a look. And what they find immediately is like the most morbid, disgusting stench they've ever smelled in their life. They find the emaciated body of Ted.
Mad.
He's wrapped in 8 layers of bedding, pants rolled up to his knees. His legs have gangrene and 5 toes are gone. He's also approximately half his body weight. The pathologist estimates he was alive 8 to 13 weeks in the cabin, based on the growth of his beard. And they determined the cause of death, exposure and malnutrition.
Can people survive that long without food? 13 weeks?
I mean, I know you can survive quite a long time without food.
Like a month, I thought.
You can't survive very long without water. I thought it was like a couple of days.
Yeah, but you can melt
Yeah, but
snow.
you're surrounded by snow.
Yes, true. So, this is a Forest Service trailer that forests rangers will use to like stop off and maybe resupply. It's there for maybe emergency situations. If they get caught in a snowstorm, they know that there's a nearby cabin, right?
Oh, was there rations and stuff in there?
So, in the trailer, there was a propane tank, items to start a fire, books, wood, etc. 31 cans of food that are opened and empty from a storage locker, but a second storage locker with enough food to feed all the men for a year was untouched.
Was it locked?
Well, the whole cabin was unlocked. That's the point.
No, I mean, was this like extra thing of food like locked and they couldn't get into it?
The police were able to get in with no issue.
Oh, that's weird.
So maybe my little theory then, I just thought maybe there was that much snow they couldn't get the door open.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. But the whole point being that they should have been able to access it. So he froze in a cabin where he could have made a fire and starved surrounded by food.
And has frostbite.
With toes missing. He was also wrapped in 8 layers of bedding.
That sounds like he was dumped, though, when he was putting the layers of bed in.
Okay. So Ted's body is the only one that was found here, but evidence of others is present. The way that the bedding was found indicates that they had been placed there by someone else, like he was being tucked in.
Right.
Like it would have been almost impossible for him to be able to actually get 8 layers of bedding around
like
him.
That.
Yes. Gary's tennis shoes were in the cabin, but Gary wasn't there.
Okay.
So Ted's shoes were missing. If Gary was suffering from frostbite, his feet might have been swollen, or would be swollen, right? So maybe he took Ted's larger shoes?
Yeah.
Okay. So the 31 cans of food that were opened, they were opened with a P38, which is an army-issued can opener. Only Gary or Jack, out of the 5 lads, would have known how to use it due to their army experience.
How hard can the can opener be to use?
I mean, if you look at it, it's not. Google a P38. So the way that they are, you can kind of see like...
I could use that. It's just a sharp edge.
Well, you maybe could, but it makes sense that they were only used in the war.
Yeah, but it's pretty
As far as I know.
self-explanatory. You put it on the edge of the can and you cut it.
Okay. But basically, it's presumed that they knew that the lads who knew how to use it with no issue would have been Gary or Jack.
Yeah. I just think any of them could have used it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so why did he die from starvation? Surrounded by food.
Well, they might have found it late.
Maybe I just didn't know it was there.
No, in the cabin, within the cabin where Ted was found, there were empty cans.
Yeah, they ran out of the food that they knew was there, but then the rest of the stores they didn't know existed.
Or they were already succumbing to the other things that had happened to them. So they'd already had frostbite, he'd already got gangrene, he's then dying, and the one thing they're trying to do is make sure that he's eating so he doesn't die of that. But
So why didn't they start the fire? Start a fire?
They might have started the fire at some point. I mean, it was weeks, right?
There was no evidence of a fire.
I mean, would you start a fire indoors?
Well, then I'm presuming there was like a fire pit or a fireplace.
So you said there was a propane tank, right?
Propane tank as well, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't know how to start a fire from a propane tank without blowing the tank up.
No, but you presume there would be matches. Like, they wouldn't have made it difficult. There was plenty of stuff to make starting a fire easy. I'm presuming, I'm not 100%, but if there's stuff to start a fire, I'm presuming they'd have some kind of fireplace or safe place to have the fire. It's a cabin.
It's a cabin,
in the middle of the woods.
That rangers use.
Rangers use. There's going to be ways to easily make a fire, but there was no effort made. But if they were there that entire time, 31 cans of food is quite a lot.
Or the other alternative is that all 5 of them were together and went through 31 cans of food. And then, like Alex said, maybe when the food that they knew was there ran out, they then moved on, but said they'll go back for him because he wasn't fit to walk because he's got no toes. And then have never been able to come back for him. Because if you're starving, you might open loads of cans of food, but not actually eat it all.
Yeah.
But then by the time they found them, the food is rotted and it maybe looks like it's been consumed.
Maybe. So one of the things that Ted's family said was that he was the sort of person you would feel morally upset about taking someone's food. So maybe it's as simple as that. He didn't eat the food because he didn't want to steal food off anyone.
But I think your survival instincts would kick in to the point where you would just do it, even if morally it felt wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
But what if also no one's feeding him? What if he literally turns around and goes, "Look, I don't want to eat the food," and then he's wrapped up, shivering, maybe passed out over the course of this time? I want to reiterate as well, this is 20 miles from where the car was found. That's a long way to walk with no winter clothing,
I mean,
no appropriate clothing.
That explains all the frostbite and stuff. They got it on the way there, and then that affected their survival in the trailer. So it made it hard to get cans open, maybe, made it hard to make a fire.
Maybe.
Just to add, are we making the assumption that the cans weren't already there? The open cans were already there?
Making the assumption that the open cans were there and opened by the lads, or whoever was in the cabin. Because that cabin would not have been touched or been visited over the course of that time.
Are you sure? Because in my head I'm thinking, what if a ranger's been there, has eaten some food and left the cans stacked? They've stumbled in, broken through the window, maybe knocked the cans over, so it looks like they've consumed all that food, have maybe tried to scramble some food, but have been so sick and just literally dying of exposure at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the trailer, they found a gold watch that didn't belong to anyone on the table next to Ted's body.
Could have just been in there, left by someone else.
Could have just been in there, or was there someone else with them?
A woman, perhaps? And a baby?
Well, maybe. So, what you were saying about someone leaving the food there, maybe the trailer wasn't previously checked because it was too far walking distance to assume anyone would make it there. And within the time of the search and stuff, because of the snowstorm, no one would have used the cabin in terms of rangers.
Yeah.
They would have had no reason to go there because it would have just been unsafe.
Okay, fair point.
So the trailer was used by forest workers, though, before and after. So maybe the watch was just one of the forest workers, potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ted's body being found triggers a new search. 2 days later, 4.5 miles away, remains, mostly of bones, of Jack and Bill are found.
Oh my god.
They likely died before reaching the trailer because of where they were found.
Yeah.
And potentially they were picked apart, moved by animals because there was just bones.
Yeah, it's just a corpse in the middle of the snow.
But also the bones were separated. It wasn't just a perfect skeleton. I think they identified the bodies from clothes and stuff. So Jack was determined to have died from hypothermia and exposure, and Bill was way too decomposed to give a proper autopsy, but they assumed it was just because of exposure.
Yeah, probably same.
What I'm taking from that is that obviously they would have looked to see if they were murdered or poisoned, any of that sort of stuff. It was just exposure from what they could determine. No foul play.
Uh-huh.
So that's 3 bodies accounted for now.
3 bodies accounted for. Jackie's dad joins the search, despite police advising him not to. He's walking along a service road, and he sees Jackie's clothes in a pile. He picks up the jacket, and his son's spine falls out.
Oh my god. Busting out the parental notice at the start of this episode.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I was like, that must be fucking
terrifying.
Obviously, complete jokes aside, that you've just found your son. Obviously, at this point, they'd found 3 other bodies. He was probably knew what to expect, but that must be horrible. So they found his skull 100 yards away from the body, and he was found somewhere between the cabin and where Jack and Bill were found.
Yep, so he's died along the way as well.
But in terms of an autopsy, did they think there was any signs of foul play?
So, in terms of the autopsy, there was no indication of foul play.
Okay, so his head wasn't missing because he'd been attacked. His head was naturally scavenged by scavenger animals.
Potentially.
It was the Yeti. Was his tongue missing?
The skull was found 100 yards away.
Yeah, that's been taken by some animal, though.
Birds particularly tend to go for, eyeballs.
The delicious eyeballs.
Delicious, juicy eyeballs.
Parental advisory. Keep that going. So where's Gary now? He's the only one they haven't found, right?
But presumably he'll be somewhere between this guy and the trailer.
Right. So they carry on doing the search. A quarter mile away from the cabin, in the completely opposite direction where the bodies were found, 3 woolen blankets and a flashlight are found. Could that have been an indication of where Gary went?
So he's left the cabin with the one guy dying in it and gone off on his own?
Or dead.
Well, he said he lasted weeks, so...
8 to 13 weeks is what they reckoned from beard growth. So could that be an indication of where Gary went?
Yeah, it could be.
Could be.
Did they find Gary?
No.
No, they did not. Gary was never found. Gary's body was never found. So the police believe that obviously Ted made it to the trailer. Jackie and Gary made it to the trailer based on the location of bodies. And Jack and Bill died on the way to the trailer.
Okay.
That makes sense, I think, from a position point of view, doesn't it?
So the guy who was found by his dad, his spine, they thought he made it to the trailer, but has ventured out for a little bit?
Maybe.
That's what they're thinking?
So he was found in between the cabin and the 2 lads.
Yeah, which implied to me that he died on the way there, but...
They determined for other reasons that he still made it to the trailer. Because they were thinking about maybe the amount of food that was eaten and
right, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Oh, and helping the guy into the blankets and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because Gary doing it by himself, if they were all struggling, all this stuff came out. So did Jackie stay in the trailer with Ted and ran away because he freaked out when he died?
Maybe.
If Gary left. Again, Gary was probably there because of the shoes. Because Gary's tennis shoes were found. So before I go into speculation, what do you guys think?
I think it's some sort of... They've gotten lost in the wilderness. They think the car's broken down, or it's got caught in the snow, the wheels are spinning, and they've panicked and left the car, and then they've all died on the journey to try and find some help. I don't think there's anything sinister at play here.
Okay. Stu?
Yeah, I'm tempted to agree the same, except the thing that I can't get my head around is why they stopped in the first place. Because, the whole car
the big
thing...
question.
Because, the chain of events after the car stops makes sense. It's for whatever reason, they've had to evacuate the car, and then they've tried to make their way to safety, and en route, several of them have died. Some of them have made it to a cabin, and then they've still died. And then nature's taking its course in terms of decomp and scavenging their remains. But I don't get why they left the car and whether or not Gary was with them at that time.
So Gary's shoes were found in the cabin. They're presuming that Gary was with them because Ted's shoes were missing and weren't found. So again, if Gary did have frostbite, the implication there being that he got rid of his shoes and left them there in the cabin. That's why they were found, and then took Ted's shoes because they were larger.
Yeah, they swap shoes.
Yeah, because your feet would be swollen.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
It is. It's really interesting, this one.
Yeah. I almost prefer this to Dyatlov Pass so far before we go into speculation, because they're actually people that have got not character to them, but there's more description.
Well, I mean, there is descriptions of people in Dyatlov Pass, but I left it out because...
But it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't
right?
matter to the story, yeah.
It doesn't matter to the story. This all matters. The way that the lads are with their learning difficulties and Jack being so attached to his car, he wouldn't, according to his family, wouldn't just leave the car.
Yeah. I'll agree with you that it's better if one of the theories is Yeti eating tongues. Don't break my heart.
Speculation and theories, right? Well, I can't even lie, because none of the tongues were necessarily missing, were they?
Well, we don't know. In fact, all the tongues were missing, because all of the flesh was missing.
Maybe.
They ate the tongue first, it's the most delicious part.
It was the Yeti.
Solved it.
Right. Let's get it out of the way. Aliens.
Yep.
Okay, next. No, well, aliens.
So, abducted from the car, and then placed back in the car, and then they're all fucked up from the alien surgery that they did on them. And they've...
Yeah, but what about the tractor beam?
What about the tractor beam?
No damage to the car.
Tractor beams don't damage cars.
How do you know?
The tractor beam can specify what object
Hang on.
to take.
Are you telling me that you are a tractor beam expert?
No, I'm a tractor beam amateur.
Please make the declaration.
No, I refuse. The tractor beam can take the people from the car.
For the first time this episode, I must, and for the first time in this podcast, I must tell you guys that Alex is not a tractor beam expert.
The tractor beam can specify that it will take the people from the car, but leave the car.
Okay, right. You're saying they were probed and they were mutilated, whatever. The autopsies came back and there was no foul play.
Well, the aliens can do it without any physical damage.
Well, there you go. You
Technology
solved
is
the
that
problem.
advanced that they can do it and then fix you.
I've actually just face-palmed because...
No, listen, this makes perfect sense. They put them back in the car afterwards, and then they woke up in a daze, didn't know what was going on, freaked out because they had some sort of weird vision about aliens, and then they fled into the night. I'm going to take it by the silence, so that was perfect, and you've got no arguments.
We are stunned. Right, let's get into the rest of it. One of the theories or speculations is that the guys could have helped another driver who knew the area and then they were taken advantage of. So one thing that's quite prevalent is that all of them were potentially vulnerable. And the families, they speculated they would have just helped people. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And then once they were taken advantage of, for whatever reason, the guys might have freaked out and didn't know how to react.
What kind of taking advantage do you mean?
Mugged? But then, why didn't they steal the car?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't... There's a lot of speculation on that.
Were they missing belongings and stuff with the bodies?
They didn't really take anything, because they were only meant to be going for that night.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's not like they would have had mobile phones and stuff.
Everything but the kitchen sink. It wouldn't have been like that. No, there was no mobile phones. The $15 that they took...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the $15 that Bill took, that could have gone on fuel. It could have gone on...
The snacks.
$15 at the time, 1978. I don't think inflation was that mad.
No,
but $15 back then would have been quite a bit of money, maybe more like $50.
Yeah.
But it would have been worth more than just like a tenner to us now.
Mm-hmm.
So the money, I don't know if the money was missing.
My presumption is that
doesn't
they
say
spent
anything
it on
about-
the basketball game.
You'd presume so. If they went out for a meal after, they could have easily got rid of that
Yeah.
money. If someone was going to mug them, they would have taken the car.
Yeah,
'Cause
it just
no
seems
matter
unlikely.
Cars are still quite expensive. In America, years ago, you could buy a car for a couple £100, but I don't know how prized this car is now. It'd probably be worth a fair few whack, but at the time, was it pennies? I don't know. But it's still belongings
someone's
that someone could have
desperate enough.
taken. Yeah, if it was someone taking advantage of them.
I mean, the only evidence for that is the guy saying that he saw an extra person with him.
Yeah,
But besides that, there's no
potentially.
other evidence of foul play.
exactly. So I want to bring your attention back to the game they had on the 25th, the next day. The guys had a game playing with the Gateway Gators. They would not have missed it. They would have won a week-long trip to LA if they won. The family, they were adamant. You know, they know their sons, brothers, whatever. They would not have missed that game. So, yeah, the implication of like when Ted said to his grandmother, like, "Oh, tonight I wouldn't need a coat." Was that just a passing comment because they were going to a game and they knew it was going to be a good laugh? And you know what I mean?
It kind of sounds
It's
like
gonna be energetic.
the assumption that they'll just come home straight away afterwards. It's not even going to be late
Yeah.
enough, cold enough. Are they still February? You still think that maybe you'd take a jacket? Or is it just a lack of foresight because these guys maybe just don't think that far into things?
Maybe, but then there's 5 of them. They all had families that knew they were leaving. Gary, for example, was relatively intelligent. Like basically, the fact that they had the game, that's kind of there to really push out the idea that there was this was pre-planned.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. So, one other thing to consider is that this is quite vague, but the families were they were quite, structured with what they did. They tended to keep, they preferred structure in their life. And there was never any unpredictability. So what about if stressful situations may have caused them to act different or not logically and impair their decision making?
I mean, that definitely sounds likely.
Yeah, this is what I said before. That
Yeah.
You can't really apply rational thought and behaviour to these people because I imagine anything could throw them off the edge.
But also, even without learning difficulties, I think you could apply that to anyone.
Yeah, of course.
Anyone in a stressful situation potentially will have their decision making impaired if you're that stressed. So it might have been heightened with these guys.
Yeah.
Another one of the speculation was maybe they were running from something. Maybe they saw something they shouldn't have seen or didn't want to see, like a drug deal or something, and then they were chased.
But then I asked that question before and you said about there being no damage.
Yeah, there was no damage. Does that mean that they drove away in haste and they were just on normal roads by this point? And then by the time they lost chase, they were then lost and then they ended up on the road that they did.
It's possible.
Maybe.
And also it might have explained the watch.
What, if they
stole it or if the guy who was chasing them was there.
It does feel like a stretch, mainly because of the fact that there was no evidence of foul play in somebody who'd admittedly had decomposed. But the idea perhaps that they could have stolen something doesn't seem that outlandish as a way of explaining why they would flee in the wrong direction. But again, it doesn't explain why they stopped the car.
Maybe they just thought, the guy's seen our car, let's ditch it and go on foot and they won't catch us.
I just can't see that happening though. Not like Sean.
It's not impossible, but it's like
No, but like you said, so Gary's not mentally impaired and being ex-army. Just I don't think anything in their behaviour would say, "Let's get out because we'll survive better in the snow than we will being chased down."
Maybe they wanted to ditch the car for a little bit until they were sure the people following them, they'd lost them, and then they wanted to return back to the car, but they got lost.
That actually, that theory ties in really well with what Joseph saw, in the sense that while he's having a heart attack, he's seen the headlights of a car that's been ditched, people leave it, shitting themselves and turning the headlights off, And then the flashlight activity, trying to re-find the position of the car, particularly if we think that Gary walked off in a different direction, could that have been the flashlight that he saw as well? You said that the blankets and the flashlight were seen. Like, how we don't exactly have a timeline for what
that was
Joseph
like
saw
20 miles
his
away,
heart
though.
attack.
Yeah, but it was 20 miles. The cabin was 20 miles away
What, from...
From the
Oh,
car.
from where the car
Yeah.
was found.
And the flashlight and the blanket was
Yeah,
found
true.
near that cabin.
yeah.
Shall I go on to the last one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually got two bits. One of them is my own theory, which I'll do first.
Ooh.
That I've kind of just thought of, but as we're going through, I've been building it up. If that woman was real, and there was another woman, like a woman that joined the group
With the baby.
with the baby or whatever else it was, or what if the woman was with them? And that might explain the gold watch. And maybe Gary was never found because he ran away with the woman.
I mean, yeah, it could have happened, but you wonder where they would have gone. Because they didn't go back to the car, which means that if they went into the wilderness, they were still
And
unprepared
then
for
left
the
blankets
wilderness.
behind
Yeah, and,
and a flashlight.
and the state of the other bodies implies that they would be fucked up at this point. So why would they want to continue on into the wilderness?
Especially when there was no fire lit over the couple of weeks that they were there.
Uh,
I think the idea that the couple of weeks that they were there, for me, that was more about if Ted Wire was too ill to care for himself, he might have succumbed to starvation if no one stayed behind to help him.
Yeah.
Which would make more sense. Like, I find it really hard to believe that they were eating food with their mate just dead or dying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or they wrapped him in blankets to hide the fact that he was dead.
All that. But it was more as if like they were trying to keep him warm because of the way he had like loads of layers around him. Clearly frostbitten. The only thing they might have been able to do was keep him warm. There's that side of it, but my presumption of it is that they didn't stay there long. They just left, or whoever left. Right. So that's my little thing that I just kind of speculated that wasn't in there. If there was a woman, did Gary leave? And maybe that's why they weren't found. Did they, for whatever reason, find a new life? Because literally, Gary, dead or alive, was never found.
Yeah.
Right, so here comes the big one.
Oh, I'm so prepared.
The suspicion fell on Gary. Obviously.
Understandably, yeah.
But there's more to it. So one thing that was highlighted that I omitted on purpose
How dare you?
is that Gary was never found, but Gary didn't have his meds with him that day. So they found the meds at home for his schizophrenia.
Yeah, I mean, why would you take them with you if you just go into a basketball game and coming back home?
Okay, yeah, true.
And the other thing as well is that it might be that he only takes them in the morning. So yeah, why would he have a reason to? He was expecting to be back.
Yeah, completely understandable, actually. So the police called psych units, the secure psychiatric units, to ask if he had been seen, but they found nothing. Nothing came back from that. So the families were concerned about Gary due to his violent past. Police records of assault, breaking and entering, used drugs in the army, escaped from a psychiatric hospital 3 times. Another big bit as well, he was known to rough it out. He was known to, have lived rough.
Right.
Like, with the homeless, scrounging for food, that sort of thing. Because he reportedly walked 500 miles, and then he walked 500 more. Sorry, that wasn't worth it. Reported to walk 500 miles from Portland, Oregon to Yuba, stealing milk and eating dog food to survive.
Holy crap.
He had no learning difficulties, plus he's the only one never found. So the fact that they didn't find a body, a lot of suspicion fell on him, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that was speculated is because when it comes to his meds, so his medication could have potentially affected his performance or slowed him down. So maybe he didn't take it before the Gators game the next day.
Okay.
If you know what I mean. So I'm not 100% sure what medication it was. Stu, I don't know if it's like a sedative for his schizophrenia.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah,
Especially 1978 as well. 1978 are the same ones around these days. Were they perfect? Would they have massive side effects as well? Maybe he didn't take the medication because he wanted to be on peak performance physically and mentally for that game.
Maybe he just had stopped taking them.
Maybe he had just stopped taking them.
Because people just do that.
So the speculation is that he had a psychotic episode and led everyone into the mountains in a paranoid state, seeing, hearing things that weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
That would explain the car.
It would explain the car and why they left. If they were all quite trusting of Gary, and they also all have, low IQ and have learning difficulties in some way, maybe they just believed everything he said, and he was like, "Get out of the car, get out of the car." All that stress. They drove thinking that something following. It's like, we gotta go. They're gonna find the car. We have to ditch the car. You know what I mean? There was no evidence though of fast driving, so the car was carefully, almost expertly driven up that road. There was no damage on the underside of the car to suggest that they've gone completely off-road and they're ramming it down this road. So in terms of stress and panic, I don't think that's the case. I think it could have been right, let's go. Maybe he manipulated them.
Yeah, it's a tough one to say.
It's a reasonable theory, but if that is the case, what happened to him? And I know, obviously, that's the whole point, but if he walked away, why didn't they find his body? Because he almost certainly would have died. If he didn't return to the car, how did he get away?
One, he was known to know how to rough it out.
But in the middle of the snow?
Yeah, but also he was, out of all of them, he was argued to be, and probably was, the best equipped intellectually and experience-wise, potentially with being in the army, and also his experience of just roughing it out, stealing milk and dog food to survive,
but without
looking
gear.
for shelter. He was not dressed for the weather.
That's the thing,
the only argument. And why didn't he start the fire? He would have known how to start a fire. Or maybe he literally dropped Ted off at the cabin. But then there was 31 cans of food. There's so many questions.
I mean, one of the things that I'm wondering, now that you have just reminded me about that, part of me wonders whether or not he could have taken Ted to the cabin, broken the window, got Ted inside, wrapped him in some blankets, left him, gone away and managed to rough it out, returned to the place and found him dead, but realising that there's nothing that he can do about it, survives there for a little bit until the snow fades, and then leaves once the snow is gone.
Why would he leave in the first place?
Well, I can't explain that, but
I know it seems like you just adding extra steps to it to make it more confusing than it needs to be.
This is the thing, though. It's one of those stories that it kind of, you need to have more information to fill in the gaps to make a decision. It's so interesting, this one, because nothing adds up.
Yeah, I agree. So is that all we
have talked
theories?
A lot about this. This is everything I've got written down, yeah. It's not necessarily everything, but of all the research that I did, this is what I was able to find. One other thing, actually, is the route from Yuba County to Chico, so the route they would have taken to the game, it's about an hour on the highway. No snow or mountains. It's just a straight road. They did it going there, and chances are that maybe wasn't the first time they'd been to Chico, especially if they have basketball games there regularly, maybe. So driving back, it makes it even more confusing that they wouldn't have just followed the highway straight, right? Plumas is 2 hours of driving in the wrong direction in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's a confusing one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Surely they could have turned around. Yeah. Surely they could have worked out that, hang on, these signs aren't going the right way. We drove on a motorway to get here. It wouldn't have been sat-nav, because it wouldn't have had sat-nav. Sometimes the sat-nav takes you the wrong way or takes you what it thinks is a quicker way, and you end up on roads that
that was that.
Come the same way.
That woman who drove all through Europe following a sat-nav. You remember that story? It was ridiculous.
No.
She started out in Germany or something, and she was going on a 20-minute car ride to her friends, and she passed through 5 other different European countries following the sat-nav.
Jesus Christ.
She was driving for hours, and like at no point did it occur to her that there was something wrong. And she ended up just like lost in the middle of nowhere.
I've been screwed over by sat-nav a couple of times, but never that bad. Okay, so that's the only other thing I've got written down, which I think is quite prominent because it's just they must have intentionally turned off.
Yeah, shall I go first? Wrap up?
Yeah, go ahead.
I like the whole conversation we had about them being chased by someone, perhaps because they stole a watch or something like that, and then them going the wrong way to get away from these people, and then ditching the car because they know what car they're in, and it stands out. It's quite a recognisable car, and then they
potentially
leave the car for a bit until the heat dies down, and they try and get back to it, but at that point it's dark and it's snowing and they can't find it, and then they wander in a direction and they just die along the way and get lost.
Yeah. My only argument to what you said about them stealing the watch specifically, well, I know it was one of my things that I said, as in like the speculation I had. It doesn't fit their characters.
No, it doesn't.
Except maybe Gary.
Yeah.
But maybe with his schizophrenia, he might have like lost his crap, had an episode, and just nicked a watch of someone.
And like I said, they might trust him enough to go along with it.
Yeah, or like not necessarily trusted him to go along with it, but like, oh well, we have to support our friend.
Yeah, but I quite like that idea.
It fits, but then
fits with all the main points of the case, especially the eyewitness's description of standing in front of the car and then disappearing from the car and then trying to find it again, supposedly.
Okay, yeah, I'll agree with that. If like, and especially if they've heard like cries for help, but then presumed it might have been a "Oi, aye," and they've turned the lights off.
They seem quite skittish, don't they? In his description.
Yeah. That I'm liking that. Yeah. Why did they leave the car? Is the other question.
Like I said, to hide away from the car because it's recognisable. And then the plan was to get back to it afterwards, but they just lost it in the darkness.
Maybe. All right, Stu, what do you think?
I'm still really on the fence. I'm really not sure. One of the things that I'm wondering is, it's February. Obviously, the nights draw in much earlier. It's if we're making the assumption that they were due back at midnight and therefore leaving sort of maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night, it's already going to be pretty dark. I'm just wondering whether or not they did just take a wrong turning, have got maybe to like an hour, 90 minutes into their journey and gone, we really should be home by now, and pulled over to try and work out where they are. Obviously, we know that they haven't really engaged with the map, or if they had, they certainly put it back. But then you wonder whether or not it's a case of they've stopped even for something as benign as to go to the toilet. We didn't really think about that before, but actually they might have stopped for just a normal reason that you take on a long journey, realised that in the time taken they haven't got home, they have just taken a wrong turning at one fork in the road versus another fork in the road that they should have taken, and it's gone from there and things have escalated. Maybe someone's got lost trying to find the car, and then they've all left the car to try and find the person that's missing, and then it's all just kind of got worse and worse from there.
Okay.
It fits.
But it was implied, though, that they all found each other and they all walked the same direction.
Yeah.
So
but did they leave? But did they leave? They might have found each other afterwards and then not been able to find the car.
Potentially. But would they really walk that far to go for a piss?
Maybe they just got...
You're saying like normal reasons to leave
Maybe
a car.
they just got scared by
a photo?
An animal or something.
Or a Yeti.
A Yeti. There we go.
Giant squid.
I'm not sure. I'm really struggling with the. I'm really struggling with the reasons why that you would stop the car if not for, like Alex saying, either what deliberately wanting to get away, but then it's already dark, so you're getting out of the car knowing that you're going to struggle to find the car anyway, and the reasons why you would get out of a car in the first place at that time in that kind of weather condition. Like, I just don't get it at all. It really doesn't make sense to me.
I think the main points to the mystery are, one, why is the car where it is in the wilderness? And two, why did they leave the car? The rest of it kind of is cut and dry.
Yeah, we can. We
The rest of
we
it does
can
kind
sort
of
of
make
piece
sense.
it together,
the way
can't
they
we? Yeah.
got there. Yeah, but 20 miles is a long way to walk.
It is, but I mean,
would they have been able to do that without dying? I mean, they did die, to be fair.
yeah.
Whoops.
I meant, like, would they be able to get as far as they
I mean,
did?
with enough
But
adrenaline
then
going.
enough adrenaline and just, like, constantly moving to keep yourself warm, maybe. I can't argue with that, but they wouldn't have had snowshoes, which is why Ted was found to have had, frostbite. It makes sense that he wouldn't have been... He was still found with, obviously, flesh and skin and everything, because he was maybe preserved by the cold, but also safe from animals and bears and whatever inside the cabin.
Uh-huh.
So that does make sense. I agree that basically after they've left the car and they've got lost or whatever, everything kind of makes sense. I'll agree with that. It's everything before that. My thing that I'm leaning towards is Gary.
Oh, okay.
It's maybe I'm biased because as I was reading it, that's maybe what was so heavily lent towards in a lot of the things, like the medication issue. He's the only one that doesn't have learning difficulties, but he has got schizophrenia. It's a perfect storm of like things. His body wasn't found. The family, and maybe before I say what I'm saying, maybe it's like defamation of character. Maybe they just didn't like him from the start. And then because his body wasn't found, the family's ganged up on him and putting him to blame. But they're all saying like, well, he was different to the group, but they got on together, so they didn't question it. But then with his history of breaking and entering, violence, everything, he might have been like the black sheep of the Yuba County Five. And I guess he was seen like that. The bad boy of the boys, yeah. And like, I don't know motive. I don't know. I've just said the same thing, but move the words around.
So I suppose for yours then, Sean, what happened to Gary?
Maybe he died and they never found the body. Maybe he got away. Maybe there was more supplies that they didn't know about. Maybe he took a shit ton of gear to wrap himself in so he could walk, and then realised, hang on, I've got too many blankets. I'll drop the blanket, drops a spare flashlight or drops his flashlight in the process, carries on walking. This presuming that he hadn't just died and they never found the body. Maybe he did get out somewhere, and then maybe he's like, shit, this was all my fault. They're going to ask me too many questions. And either does die or carries on and is able to find a new life somewhere. I know that's a stretch, but they never found the body. They never found him. How easy would it have been to find a missing person at that time in terms of 1978? I don't know. I presume it wouldn't have been impossible, but I don't know. I really don't know. He was known to have walked 500 miles from Portland in Oregon to Yuba County, which is a long way to walk, unless you're the Proclaimers. They'd do it for you. But then, what time of the year was that? How long did it take him? Did that take him weeks? Did he have no clothing and stuff like he had? Like, was it the middle of summer? Or was it the opposite? Was it the same time? Was he used to dealing with that kind of cold? What if he had really, really bad feet, and that's why he stayed in the cabin for a bit, but then he didn't like the fire? It's just so...
Yeah. So many plot holes.
The only thing that I'm not confident on, but the only thing I can think of that makes sense is that he might have instigated something through a psychotic episode or otherwise, and it led to this.
Maybe he, like, had a psychotic episode and just ran into the wilderness and they chased him.
Because they're panicking, trying to find their friend. Maybe they had a sugar rush from all the...
Yes.
All the Twinkies.
It was the corn syrup.
It was the cornstarch.
Or maybe
I like
Gary
this
survived
one because it's
and
just...
went on to make a popular film called The Room.
No.
And he was Tommy Wiseau all along.
And he became Tommy Wiseau.
That makes literally no sense to me because I haven't seen it.
I mean, if you have seen it, it still doesn't make any sense.
Oh, right, fair enough.
All I'm saying is, get some booze, and go watch The Room. After watching this podcast. Well, or listening to this podcast.
If you haven't seen The Room, it's
a trip.
It's an experience. Yeah. It's an experience. It's, yeah. If you can try and work it out.
If you can piece it together in your mind hole. Anyway, this has been great. Thanks for bringing this, Sean.
You're more than welcome. I really enjoyed this. It was a really good thing to research because it's just that I feel like there's so much to it. Like the Diablo Pass, there's like loads of evidence, and I'm comparing it to that because it's basically, you know,
it's literally American Dyatlov Pass, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like America have gone, hey, that sounds good. We'll copy it and we'll make it better.
There you go. Gary wanted to reenact it. I'm pretty sure Dyatlov Pass was.
He was a big fan.
That's not the point. There you go.
Well, Dyatlov Pass was way before. It was like the 20s, wasn't it, or 30s?
Was it?
Yeah, it was
way. It was, I thought it was really early. Ago. Yeah.
Oh well, there you go then. Dyatlov Pass.
We're all just frantically googling it now.
Hang on. 59.
Yeah, 1959.
59, okay. So
it was before. He was a big fan.
19 years after.
Yeah, he got into the secret Soviet files, which they'd hidden away. Because I don't think at this point the Dyatlov Pass was like known by the public. But he was actually a CIA spy, and he got into the files. And he wanted to reenact it and make a film. But he forgot his video camera, and they all died.
Amateur.
The end.
Case solved.
Ramblings of a Madman is currently available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. All the links are available on Twitter at Roam Podcast, that's ROAM Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!
Would anyone like a fun fact?
As always, I would love a fun fact.
So it's slightly off topic, but quite interesting. The Special Olympics was created or founded by Joseph P. Kennedy, Jr. You'll never guess who that is. It's JFK's son.
Yeah.
It took you too long. Who was inspired?
I didn't want to interrupt. I was like, well, it's obviously his son.
Yeah. J.P. Kennedy, Jr. was inspired to do so when seeing his younger sister have a lobotomy. So JFK's daughter, when I was doing the research for this, what? JFK, the president, his daughter.
It wasn't his daughter, it was his sister. His sister.
So who's Joseph P. Kennedy
His
Jr.
brother?
then? JFK's brother was Joseph P. Kennedy.
Yes.
Thanks, distant voice.
Cut this out.
Wait, what's
Cut this out.
I do one thing.
Do one thing. Right, hang on. Oh, I thought when we were doing the fact checking yesterday, I was like, oh, Joseph P. Kennedy was his daughter, was his son then. So by default, you put his sister was right. Would anyone like a fun fact?